Kathy in Denver, Colorado, on 1060. You're up next with Jim Yakin on Catholic Answers Live. Hi, Kathy.
Hello. Hey, I am a faith formation teacher for third graders, and I try to, at some point during the year, explain to them kind of a timeline of the origins of the Catholic Church and kind of compare it to when Protestantism started, to give them an idea of how long the faith existed before people kind of split off. Mm-hmm. So I was looking for a simplified timeline, to give them a visual, and the Catholic ones are very complicated because they have all these councils in there. But I found several of them that talk about the Orthodox Church, and so their line, they call themselves the one true church, goes straight across. And I think it's the 11th century, there's this line that goes off, which is the Roman Catholic Church, and then you see the Protestant Reformation. So I thought that we were unified with the Orthodox Church at this point, or I don't know. I know there's different Orthodox churches to the Eastern Rite and all that. So could you explain to me, did that split happen and then we kind of came back together, or what's going on with that?
Okay. There's going to be different ways that this gets charted in timelines based on the perspective of the people in question. Both the Catholic Church and the Orthodox Church claim to be the continuation of Jesus' original church down to the present day. And since we both were united prior to the 11th century, we have a common lineage to that point. And the question is, who did the branching off in the 11th century? We both acknowledge that because Jesus said that his church would prevail, the gates of hell would not prevail against it, his church must therefore still exist, and we both see our own communions as the continuing fulfillment of that. As a Catholic, I would say that the Catholic view on that point is correct, and there are reasons for that. One of them being the fact that we have the papacy, which is the ecumenical center of Christ's church. In order to be in full communion with Christ's church, you need to be in full communion with Peter. And unfortunately, at present, our friends in the Orthodox community aren't. So I would say that the Catholic claim to be the continuation of Jesus' church is the superior claim. Having said that, the relations between Orthodox Christians and Catholic Christians have developed over time. Back in the 11th century when the split occurred, and it's sometimes dated to the year 1054, but really that's kind of like a lot of moments when historians will say this is when a new era began. It's really kind of a little arbitrary. The two groups had been having a kind of cultural Cold War between Greek speakers and Latin speakers for some time. And so that's a somewhat arbitrary point. But back at that time, relations between the two groups could be quite hostile. And there have been ups and downs in the relationships. In recent times, in the 20th century in particular, and now in the 21st century, the relations have been warming. And a notable event in that process was in the 1960s when Pope Paul VI and the Patriarch of Constantinople at the time pulled the mutual condemnations that their predecessors had announced in the 11th century. Even more recently, the current Patriarch of Constantinople came and honored Pope Francis when he was installed. And since the Patriarch of Constantinople is seen in some ways as a successor for the Apostle Andrew, Peter's brother, Pope Francis has publicly referred to the Patriarch of Constantinople as my brother Andrew, just like he is the successor of Peter. And so there has been a warming of relations. It's not a complete reunion, unfortunately, at this point, but we are moving closer. Certain groups that for a time were part of the Eastern Orthodox Communion have in the past returned to the Catholic Church, and they form some of the Eastern Rite Catholics that are already in communion with the Church. During your question, you mentioned the Eastern Rite, and actually there's not just one thing called the Eastern Rite. There are several Eastern churches that are in communion with the Catholic Church, and so they're not members of the Orthodox community. They're members of the Catholic community, but some of their ancestors, in some cases, were members of the Orthodox community, and then they are groups that are already in union again with the Catholic Church. Hopefully, one day in the future, all of the Orthodox and all of the Catholics will find a way to be in communion with each other again.
Okay. Can I ask one more quick question about
Yeah.
that? Does the laying on of hands and the reception of holy orders,
Yeah.
is that valid on
Yep.
those rites also?
Yep,
So they can
it's valid in the
consecration, all that. Okay.
it's valid in the Orthodox community, like in the Catholic community. So they have valid sacraments also.
Kathy in Denver, thank you for the call.